So in this lesson, we're just going to take a quick look here at Wright and Simply Jesus, this chapter on the making of a first century storm, and just highlight a couple of points that Wright wants to stress. So we're talking here about the basic conflict that's surrounding Jesus' ministry, and Wright sees this as a clash of two big narratives. So there is the Roman narrative about the emperor, and so particularly like with Octavian Augustus. And the Roman narrative is that he is Son of God, who is ushering in a new world order. And so, if basically what we have here is in the Roman Empire, so Julius Caesar was assassinated, but the people loved Caesar. And even though he was assassinated by the Senate, they afterwards revered Caesar. And Caesar, Julius Caesar, ends up becoming, as it were, a god. Now, Augustus is Julius Caesar's adopted son, not his biological son, but he adopts him. And he's going to end up ruling as emperor in Rome. So, since he is the son of Julius Caesar, and since Julius Caesar has become a god, Augustus is son of God. He's son of God Caesar. And so the idea basically is that the Roman emperors are by divine right given the authority to rule in the world. And the gods are aligned with Rome, and the gods will give victory to Rome as Rome fights her enemies and subdues all peoples under its order. And the Romans see the order that they are bringing as an order of justice and laws. And so that everyone else are living, in a kind of a lawless free-for-all, and that they are kind of coming in, providing a salvation, a deliverance, as it were, to other peoples, bringing them into this order where there can be economic prosperities and where there can be a society that is ruled by law. And so we get this kind of new world order. Wright does make the mention about Novus Ordo Seclorum, which is also on our U.S. dollar bill, this idea of New World Order. So there's also this kind of narrative that goes with the kind of American mythology that America is bringing in this kind of New World Order, and maybe even that it's by divine right. So there's something kind of tongue-in-cheek there with Wright about U.S. mythology. So anyway, we've got this as the great narrative that's behind what's going on in Jesus' ministry. Jesus is living in Palestine. Palestine is being ruled by Rome, and Rome is saying that they have brought in this new world order. So Tiberius was the emperor at the time that Jesus lived. So Augustus was the emperor at the time that Jesus was born, but by the time that Jesus' ministry starts, Tiberius is the ruler. And he was called on the coin Augustus Tiberius Caesar, son of the divine Augustus. So the emperors, Roman emperors, while they are alive, are not gods, but they are related to the gods. They are connected to the gods. Now, this, of course, would be true for most of the emperors. There is one exception. There was the emperor Caligula, and Caligula wanted to be thought of or seen as a god on earth. But the other emperors just see themselves as kind of connected to the gods, and maybe even with the expectation that once they die, that they too will become a god. So for a lot of us, we tend to think, well, if you're a god, you live eternally. But for the Romans, a human being can become a god. And so Tiberius is the son of Augustus. And so Augustus has died. Augustus has become a god, just like his father, Julius Caesar, has become. And so, Tiberius is also son of God. So we need to be keeping this in mind when we see this language of Son of God in the New Testament describing Jesus. Christians are calling Jesus Son of God, and in that they are making a claim of his authority, the right that has been given to him to rule, just like the Romans believe the gods have given the emperors the right or the authority to rule. So the Jewish narrative is that God will deliver his people out of chaos and slavery and recreate them into a great nation. So it's almost impossible, really it is impossible to truly appreciate the Jesus narrative in the gospel without an understanding of the grand narrative, we might even call the meta narrative in the Old Testament about what God has done with his special people, with Israel. So, for Israelites, for Jews, then later on, the great narrative that defines them is the narrative of the Exodus. So that God had rescued his people one time when they were enslaved, when they were oppressed, and he brought them out of that condition and formed them into a great nation and delivered them into the promised land. And so, with that narrative, then, after they had become a kingdom, and after then that kingdom falls apart, and then they become subdued by other powers, this narrative of the Exodus provides hope for Jews that one day God will once again bring about a rescue. God will one day deliver his people out of the chaos of living under a different foreign power, basically being a slave, as it were, to that other power, and once again make them into a great nation. So during the time of the Hasmonean rulers, they are becoming a powerful people, although they still remained a vassal state under the Seleucids. But then when Rome stepped in, because there was civil war, because of two Maccabean brothers who were fighting for the position of a high priest and ruler, Rome steps in and annexes Palestine, annexes Judea and this region under their province of Syria. And so in Jesus' day, they are enslaved, as it were, maybe from the perspective of people like Jesus and other agrarian workers. They see themselves as living under occupation, living under slavery or bondage to Rome. And so the Passover or the Exodus story is once again a narrative that reminds many Jews that one day God is going to come and get them out of this situation. Now, there were certain Jews that aligned themselves with Rome. They profited from Rome. They were economically better off because of Rome. They didn't want to see themselves released from Rome, so they were quite happy and content and powerful and influential. So they're not looking to escape. But many other Jews, probably the vast majority of Jews, did not see that their current situation under Rome is the ideal. The ideal would be to be an independent kingdom with their own king and their own authority and living off their land and not having to pay taxes to another foreign power. So we have these two big narratives that are at work. And so one of the things that Wright draws attention to is we have what he calls a retrospective eschatology versus a prospective eschatology. And so, eschatology is this view of what is going to be happening in the future. And so with Rome, it's this kind of retrospective, what the gods have done in the past to allow Rome to be this power, and a prospective eschatology, what Jews believe will happen in the future. So the God who brought order out of chaos and who brought enslaved people out of Egypt would do it again. And this hope, this prospective eschatology, is at play amongst the people who are living at Jesus' day. So you would have someone like John the Baptist who, is saying, repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. In other words, God is going to get ready to do something in the world that will bring us out of this, and he will remove the kingdom of Rome and bring in his own kingdom. It's the same message that Jesus was preaching. Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. God is getting ready to do something to free people from that which they are enslaved to. So anyway, a contrast in eschatological outlook. So we have as well a clash of two identities. So we see Rome sees Palestine basically as a source for food. So, this land is not, that significant of an area for Rome. It's significant enough, but there are other parts of the Roman Empire that are much more valuable to them. Certainly, Egypt is very valuable because Egypt grows a lot of wheat, and it's the breadbasket, so to speak, of the Mediterranean world. Rome has become a very large city, and it has a large population, and it needs to feed that population. And some of the people living in that land want food from around the empire. And so all kinds of network systems have to be in place to be able to transport that food to Rome. Palestine is a place in particular that's valuable for things like oil and wine. And in the area of Galilee, maybe even sometimes fish. So the Sea of Galilee has some fish that could be packaged in salt and then could be transported. So when you see Jesus, calling out fishermen, one of the things behind what's going on there is that Sea of Galilee, where the people are fishing, has become a place that has been catching fish, not only to sell to locals, but also to transport far away to places like to other parts of the Roman Empire. And so the area of the Sea of Galilee also becomes competitive. And Herod Antipas, who's ruling in the area, has to administer the fishing industry in there. And so what that may mean is some people can't fish as much as they want, and other people are allowed to fish and maybe even take up some of the fish that other people would like to catch. So, when you think about fishermen, you might have this kind of idealized, romanticized view of just people out doing their job, just living day to day, but there are economic realities and political realities that are at work in the fishing industry in Galilee, because this is a part of the Roman Empire, and Rome is needing lots and lots of food from all over the empire. So there is land that has also been confiscated in Galilee and other parts of Palestine. And non-Jews own this land and have tenant workers on the land who are farming that land in order to produce foods, again, to ship off to Rome or to other parts of the empire. So whereas, quite some time ago, people might have just farmed enough for their own family and to sell a little bit and be able to take care, at a subsistence level. Now what is desired is bigger farms in order to, generate more food for Rome's appetite. So basically, that's how Rome looks at Palestine. It sees it as a place that provides some of the food that it needs, especially oil and wine. Most Jews, however, though, see Rome as the new Babylon. So Babylon, of course, was where the southern kingdom, Judah, had been taken into captivity. So the name Babylon has this association with exile. And this is an important theme for Wright's theology, the way he views the Gospels, how he views the New Testament, how he views early Christianity as seeing themselves coming out of this exile, or Jews coming out of this exile. And so with exile, when the people were exiled, they were removed from the land. They didn't have a king. They didn't have a temple. Now, because of the Persians, they were allowed back into the land. They still didn't really have a king. Now, of course, later on, you're going to have Herod the Great, who's going to take on the title of king, but he's not really a Jew. You are going to have a temple, and it's going to be great and large, and Herod is going to expand it. But in one sense, because you're still under the Romans, there's still this sense of being exiled. We're not completely back to the state where you could have your entire kingdom. Though you are back in the land, you are still in exile. And this concept of being exiled is the concept of being punished. And so Jews are still being punished by God because they're still having to serve Rome. And the hope is, the desire is, to be freed from that and to be brought out of exile, to find salvation, to find deliverance, and particularly deliverance from Rome. So when we're reading the story about Jesus, it's good to just kind of keep in mind these two big clashes that are going on, these clashes of identities and these clashes of narratives, and how Jesus is speaking into that context, and how his message and teaching may have been understood by really both sides of this clash.